So now let's move to this. In very, very important to understand, we have what we call an IAM policy, and we have what we call a resource policy. Actually, we have more than that, but as we progress, we will get to the remaining. But for now, let's focus on IAM policy and a resource policy. The difference between IAM policy and a resource policy is this. When you attach a policy to an IAM user or to a role, that is an IAM policy. When you attach a policy to a resource, so let me show you. It's easier to understand when you see it on the screen yourself. So remember that we created a policy. We attached the policy to this group, and by the virtue of that, this user is able to inherit the permission, right? This is called an IAM policy. When you attach a policy to a user, when you attach a policy to a group, when you attach a policy to an IAM role, this one, we haven't talked about it yet, we will get there. But when you attach a policy to an IAM role, when you attach a policy to an IAM group, when you attach a policy to an IAM user, then that policy is called an IAM policy. A resource policy, let me give an example of that. Again, don't ask what is an instance, what's an SDK. Don't worry, we will get there. I'm just showing you those services so I can prove what we're currently teaching. Now, if I go to an S3, there's another service called an S3 in AWS. Again, for those who are curious, an S3 is a storage in the cloud. It's where you can store your data in the cloud. This is not an S3 class, but I want to show you something. Now, if I click on this S3 and I click on permission, okay, now you can see there is a bucket. Edit this, and I click on policy generator. You see, this is very similar to what we saw earlier, right? You see, very similar, right? But this is called a resource policy. Why? Because this policy is attached to a resource. And what's that resource? The resource is called S3. When you attach a policy to a resource, the policy is called a resource policy. When you attach a policy to an IAM group, to an IAM user, to an IAM role, the policy is called an IAM policy. The same policy, nothing is changed. They are written the same way, they are formatted the same way,